welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 515 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. What is the reason for a union? Why do people look at unions as such an important entity when we talk about jobs, when we talk about employees, when we talk about fairness? Outside of this podcast, I work in the media. Work in sports media, news. I work in the media, and one thing that most jobs, especially jobs like media jobs, especially jobs, service jobs, construction, those type of jobs. One thing, the word that they hate the most, that they hear their employees talk about, is unionizing. You see, the whole point of a union is to make sure that the employees for whatever company is getting treated fairly. The whole point of a union is that companies that obviously have the company's best interest isn't necessarily the one that has the final say-so without any pushback with the employees. Because again, the union's job is to have the employee's best interest at heart first. While we know the companies are going to have the company's best interest. So the union is to make sure that the employees are treated fairly, are compensated fairly, and they aren't getting taken advantage of. That is essentially the whole reasoning for a union, to make sure the employees are viewed and taken fairly. And in other words, to make sure the employees have a loud enough voice in the rooms when decisions are being made. In layman's terms, that's essentially what a union is for. For the longest, I never understood why, when you look at sports unions, like when you look at the NBAPA, when you look at the MLBPA, when you look at the NHLPA, when you look at these sports unions, I never understood why the NFLPA, if you look at surveys, if you talk to former players, if you just talk and look at the decisions that have been made, I could never understand why an organization as large as the NFL, yet it seemed like the NFLPA was the weakest out of all the sports PAs that we just discussed, NBA, MLB, NHL. But then I figured it out. Or it was figured. Shout out to Paulo Torre. He dropped a bombshell NFL collusion and NFLPA collusion story on his platform. And it was essentially hearkening back to 2022 with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson getting, 5 years, $230 million fully guaranteed. First contract we've ever seen in that manner. And then you saw players like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, who was up for an extension, who also, I could say, has done more and at the time was viewed as better, even more than they are now, but at the time was viewed better than Deshaun Watson, who, if I'm not mistaken, had a bunch of off-the-field issues and was recovering from injury. But you were seeing that players that have a longer, more extensive resume than Deshaun Watson, like a Lamar Jackson, like a Russell Wilson, like a Kyler Murray, wasn't getting the same deal or a better deal, because that's what usually happens in the market. And the word collusion was getting thrown around a lot, but collusion is one of the hardest things to prove. Unless there is concrete evidence that says, oh yeah, they colluded against X, they colluded against Y, it's almost impossible to prove collusion. That doesn't mean that it's not a thing, but it's almost impossible to prove collusion. But we know. There's a reason why when you look at the logo of the NFL, it is a shield, not a player. There is a reason why when we talk about the face of the NFL, it's extremely hard to pinpoint who's the face of the NFL, but it's not really hard to pinpoint the most popular team in the NFL. The NFL is always going to protect the brand, i.e., behind a shield. And in order to protect that brand, the owners have to come together and make sure that their brand, their agenda gets pushed. Which is why, because I don't know if you guys remember, but which is why the owners were pissed at the Cleveland Browns when they gave Deshaun Watson that contract, because they knew this was going to open the floodgates, and it should have opened the floodgates. Because, again, I'm all for people getting their money, but it didn't. Deshaun Watson, especially at that time, if you want to say that he was worth $230 million guaranteed, I'm not saying you're wrong. But in the same breath, you can't look at what Lamar Jackson was doing or Russell Wilson, who was a Super Bowl winner, and say, you guys aren't worth that, but Deshaun Watson is. Which brings me to the NFLPA. The NFLPA, the PA in general, Players Association, is supposed to be a union for the players. And it's supposed to be that voice in the room when you have a bunch of owners that's always going to side with the league. That voice in the room, a loud voice in the room, that is supposed to be like, whoa, what about what's best for the players? That is what the NFLPA is supposed to be for. The P in the A stands for Player Association. It's for the players. For people, damn, I'm 10 minutes in and I haven't really explained it. For people that don't know what I'm talking about. Again, shout out to Pablo Torre. He pretty much dropped a bombshell and proving essentially that there has been collusion amongst not just the NFL and the owners, but the NFLPA. And a lot of the evidence stems from that 2022 free agent class. Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. And the fact that the NFL owners came together and said, we are not going to essentially pay someone like Lamar, someone like Russell Wilson, what they feel they owe just because they gave Deshaun Watson that money. in layman's terms, that is 100% collusion. And it wouldn't be a thing. Because, let me say this. It definitely is a thing, but we knew. Come on. You know that the NFL and these owners collude with each other in order to make sure that the product is best for them. That's what it is. And again, we know this. It's very hard to prove, but you know it. You know, you see it with someone like Colin Kaepernick. The NFL colluded to make sure he does not get back on a roster. Now, yes, I think that it's far from done, or not far from done. I think that his career is extremely done. But at the time of his height, it was colluded that we're not going. The owner can't. Let me not throw around the colluded word because people don't like that. The owners came together and said, we do not want Colin Kaepernick on a roster, so we're not going to put him on a roster. I don't care if you're interested. It's not going to happen. There have been plenty of players, former players, that have sued the NFL for situations like this. So when you hear a NFL collusion scandal and there's evidence with it, that's not the bombshell. That's not the shocker. The shocker in this situation is the NFLPA, the legitimate sector that is supposed to be for the players and is supposed to be as pure as possible for the players, was involved in supporting the NFL ownership. When people hear the average fan turns off their sympathy and sort of desensitizes themselves to the fact that these are still people because of the money that they make. And that's understandable. Like, if we go back to this Deshaun Watson thing, I don't believe I'm ever going to see $230 million in my lifetime. I'm never going to see the type of money that these players make a game. And I think that a lot of players, or let me back up. I think a lot of people allow themselves to get desensitized to the fact of, while yes, we're watching millionaires and thousandaires essentially playing a sport, these are still people playing arguably the most dangerous sport in the world. You know how many times we've seen one hit can change the course of somebody's entire life? Now, yeah, I'm not saying there should be sympathy in a sense, because these football players know what they're getting themselves into. They know the risks that they run every week when they go out and play these games. So I'm not saying that we should just, boo-hoo-hoo. But what I'm saying is, you're talking about a uber violent sport. And the organization that is put in place to protect you, solely protect you, against the NFL owners and the ownership brass is now, it's been proven, essentially, that they're working hand in hand, which gets me to Lloyd Howell, who essentially is currently the executive director of the NFLPA, who, if you did a little bit of digging, realized he was appointed to the NFLPA, or he was appointed the executive director role for the NFLPA by the owners. And you know that it's crazy when these findings come out and instantly the NFLPA essentially asks for this to be, keep this quiet and essentially asks to suppress the findings. The reason why this is massive is because, again, we're talking about a union. Unions were solely built to protect the people that they govern, the people that they're over, the employees. As as rich as they are, the NFL players are employees to the NFL. And if you don't have a union, if you don't have an organization that is protecting these players, things are going. There's never going to be an instance where the players are going to be put first, if there is not a union, an NFLPA. When you go into the negotiation table, right, it is extremely rare that everything that you ask for, you get. Extremely rare. At that point, it's not really a negotiation. It's just you tell me what you want and I give it to you. That's not negotiation. And I say all that to say, no, you don't expect everything that the NFLPA and everything that these players want to be essentially catered to. That's just not life. That's just not how this works. But one of the biggest reasons why the NFLPA is looked at as amongst the weakest in all of the main sports, is because it seems like almost every decision that happens is against the players, which really makes you think like, yo, what was the NFLPA? When we talk about almost yearly, they're saying that they're going to extend the season, or take away funds. It just seems like almost every decision that is made is against the players, and there's not much pushback. Well, we're seeing it. We're seeing why. The literal executive director, Lloyd Howell Jr., is essentially, who, might I add, is the executive director for the NFLPA, is essentially working for the owners, because he was appointed that by the owners, which I didn't know. This is also huge because it's a trust thing. How do you expect players to trust a union that was put in place to protect them when stuff like this has come out and proven? Shout out to Dominique Foxworth. I saw his commentary, and he was, he was upset because he was part of the NFL Players Union as well as a player, and he understands how sacred that relationship is from the Players Association to the players it's supposed to be. And the fact that now when you look, it's going to be incredibly difficult for a player to ever trust that the NFLPA is, especially when Lloyd Howell is still the executive director. It's going to be extremely hard to trust that. They're talking about class action lawsuits, which I get. And I wouldn't. Again, shout out to Dominique Foxworth and his show. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray put their names in that class action lawsuit if there is one that is filed, because again, you you essentially held back money that I was rightfully owed just because you didn't like the fact that you gave money to somebody else and they got nothing to do with me. Like, because you wanted to keep a bottom line, you wanted to keep a status, so you used me when I should have been paid more. That's why I never was upset with Lamar Jackson when he was. Remember when he was doing that holdout for the money, and people were saying, "Oh, the reason why he doesn't have the money is because his mom is the agent. He doesn't have a professional agent." Or Lamar. Obviously, when there's a contract negotiation, everyone wants to put out the bad. Lamar Jack, this is his playoff record. Like, I was never upset because this. What the man is MVP of the league. Russell Wilson was a Super Bowl champion. Went to 2 Super Bowls. Like, I think the overarching frustration with this is, if you're a player, who has your best interests outside of your team? And I don't mean team as far as the team that employs you. I mean your personal team, your agent or your family. If the NFLPA has essentially been proven to be in cohorts with the organization that they're essentially supposed to protect you from, then how are you going to trust them? Again, I'm not mad, and I don't think that we should blame Deshaun Watson for anything. If anything, I'm saying with this whole collusion thing, if anything, Deshaun Watson was a linchpin to really show you, oh, there is legit collusion happening in the sport. The sad and unfortunate part about it is the organization that is put in place to protect the players from the very thing that we talked about in collusion is the very thing that the NFLPA was involved in. I think this is going to be a slow process, but first and foremost, I think Lloyd Howell has to be up out of there. There's no way that you can. He's essentially the face of this scandal. And it's like, I'm not even upset with the NFL because, again, the NFL is always going to protect their shield. It's always going to protect their brand. There's no way Leonard Floyd, who has direct connection with these owners, there's no way that he can remain as the executive director. And Dominique Foxworth was talking about it. It's probably going to take a player or two, a huge player, to make a statement like withholding their services for a year. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's going to take some change. Because trust and believe, I'm not going to say it's forever tarnished. I'm not going to say that it's forever stained, but it's going to be a very long time before. I said a very long time and a bunch of change before I think the players are ever going to trust the NFLPA again. Because this is, above all, the biggest slap in the face to the players. Because, again, they look to the NFLPA as the voice that they may not have in those rooms. And the fact of the voice that you're supposed to trust is essentially working hand in hand against the organization that they're supposed to be advocating for you against. I don't. And also, you know what's funny about this? There's a reason why this isn't the number one thing that's on any talk show. ESPN, Fox, nothing. You know, if you ever needed to a demonstration of how powerful the league is, this is it. Again, this is massive. And I'm not saying that this is going to essentially, you know, ruin the league or anything, because football is going to continue. We saw that with concussions. Once concussions was found out, it didn't stop anything. Um, but this is a massive, massive black eye for the NFLPA. And I don't know how. Again, it's going to take work, and the number one thing that has to happen is Lloyd Howe has to be up out of there. But I don't even know if that's going to happen. You know. But this is, again. Lastly, before I move on, I want to emphasize the bombshell is not that the NFL was found out to be colluding. We essentially knew that as fans. You know that. I'm sure players know that. Players know that the owners are always going to do what's best, not just for the team, but for the NFL in general, because they understand that with the NFL in a great light, with their team in a great light, it makes them more money. That's why some of the worst teams in the NFL still make millions upon millions upon millions of dollars a year. People want to watch the NFL. So the fact that there was the NFL was caught colluding, that's not the shocker. That's not the reason why this is a scandal. That's not the reason why this is a bombshell. The reason why this is a bombshell is because the NFLPA, the union that's supposed to protect the players, is essentially in cohorts with the NFL and, for lack of a better term, working in the best interest of the NFL more than the players. And a prime example is 2022 in that free agency class, all starting with Deshaun Watson. And if you want the biggest name that should be upset with this whole thing, it is Lamar Jackson. Because, again, Lamar Jackson knows what he's worth. And at the time, and even at this time, in fact, more now than ever, Lamar Jackson has been worth much more than Deshaun Watson. But because of collusion, because the owners was like, oh, no, this is not the precedent we're setting, Lamar Jackson had to settle for less. Russell Wilson had to settle for less. Kyler Murray had to settle for less. And the organization that's supposed to be their loudest advocate in the NFLPA turned out and has turned out to be less of an advocate for the players and more of an advocate for the NFL in general. That is the issue. We'll see where it goes. Or not. You know, as we've seen, the NFL was really good with keeping things quiet. So, who knows? So last episode, I talked about Chet Holmgren, and I talked about how this was if you're going to make dynasty moves, this was the summer, this was the off season to do it, because if you waited, Chet Holmgren was going to be more expensive, J-Dub was going to be more expensive, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander was going to be more expensive, and they got Shea done. He has one of the richest contracts in NBA history. Chet Holmgren, at the time of recording, just got paid. And right when we were finished, J-Dub, and I said that J-Dub was going to be a little difficult because of how much he could. I know that there's still a rookie deal, but how much he could cost, because he made an All-NBA team. He also made All-Defense. So I said that might be the one that's going to be difficult. Well, that same day, Jalen Williams, J-Dub, signs 5-year, essentially $287 million rookie contract extension. Now, again, I know it's going to sound crazy, but J-Dub essentially took a discount, because if he would have waited a year, he could have made upwards of $100 million more. But I said it, and this is proof, in my opinion. Dynasties can't just happen, or can't just. Let me say it like this: owners can't be the only ones that want a dynasty. GMs can't be the only ones that want a dynasty. While they play a major part, they can't be the only ones. It has to be players. The players have to be willing to sacrifice in order to essentially etch their name in the book. Now, just because Shea, Chet, and J-Dub got paid doesn't necessarily mean that this automatically makes them a dynasty. This automatically means that they're going to rattle off 2, 3, 4 straight championships. I'm not saying that. Again, sports is, you never know. Go back to the Boston Celtics. The reason why the Boston Celtics were perfectly fine giving Jason Tatum, who deserved the money, and Jaylen Brown, who deserved the money, $300 million contracts, is because they had a window. And that window was 3 to 4 years, same as the Oklahoma City Thunder. I know it says a 5-year contract, but Chet, J-Dub, and Shea combined are making $822 million. Just those 3 players. In the span of this contract, those 3 players will be making $822. Now, why do I keep saying that? $822 million. I apologize. Let me put some more respect on y'all name. It is almost unfathomable for the second apron financially. It is almost unfathomable to think that all 3 of them will be, unless something crazy happens with the NFLPA, unless something crazy happens with the collective bargaining agreements, unless something happens within the next 5 years or so, it is almost unfathomable to think that all 3 will be on the same team once these contracts are up. Because financially, it just wouldn't work, which is why, when you go back, see, the Boston Celtics is a perfect example of all of this. If Jason Tatum not being there essentially takes a year out, right? So even if Jason Tatum didn't go down and they still lost, right? If Jason Tatum doesn't go down and they still lose to the Knicks, you're not going to see sweeping changes, because again, you still have another year. When these contracts, because of the second apron and everything, you have a good 3 to 4 year window. And you winning 3, if you have 4 years, you winning 3 championships or you winning 2 out of 4. I'm not saying that's a dynasty, but your name is etched in that book. There's not too many teams that have won 2, 3, 4 championships, let alone in a 4 to 5 year span. So I'm not saying that you're automatically going to be considered a dynasty, but that you're going to be up there. Jason Tatum is gone next year. So that means essentially, I like Jaylen Brown, but I don't think if he is your best player, a championship caliber team without Jason Tatum. So it's like that plan got blown up. That's why you see Drew Holiday on a different team. That's why you see Kristaps Porzingis on a different team. That's why they're fielding calls for a Jaylen Brown, for a Derek White, because that plan got blown up with that injury. Because not only do you miss this year that you lost, you're going to miss next year as well. So that 3 to 4 year window has essentially turned to 2 years. Last year and the year Jason Tatum comes back. That's financially, that just doesn't make sense. To have 2 players worth $300 million, have all these players, Drew Holiday, who's making over, have all these players on the team, and you're essentially not even playing for a championship next year, which is why you see them dealt. I'm not wishing injury upon anyone. Please, please, please don't hear me say that. But what I'm saying is this. It was incredibly smart for the Oklahoma City Thunder to try to get these deals done this year. And it shows that there is a collective uniformity in desires, not just with the Oklahoma City Thunder, but with essentially the Thunder's big 3, because, again, if J-Dub would have waited a year, he would have gotten more money. I don't know if Chet would have made an All-NBA team, so I get why Chet would have signed it, but it was on J-Dub. And honestly, when you look at the landscape of the league, there's not too many. Now, I know that Chet has to get better. Obviously, he didn't have the greatest of finals, but they did win it. But this, I know you see 5 years. J-Dub gets the 5 years. Chet gets the 5 year. Shea gets the 5 year. But that, it's not feasible for them to be in this, unless they just take considerably less towards the end of this deal, which I doubt, because at the end of these deals, I don't even think they'll be 31, which means that they're in line to get another huge contract, all of them. So that's why I think the window is 3 to 4 years. And 4 is really pushing it. It's really 3. Now, if they if they win 2, like win next year and then lose again, that's when you get 4. Okay, let's run it back. But, and Lord forbid, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but if there's an injury, that changes a lot. And you're going to see a lot of change, a lot of sweeping changes. And again, shout out to Sam Presti, shout out to the organization. They have put themselves in a position where they can make those changes with the draft picks that they have, the flexible contracts that they have outside of these 3. You know, the Thunder are in prime position. Again, I'm not saying they're a dynasty yet, right? And I'm not, obviously they have to win another one, but all the moves they're making, I keep calling dynasty moves because they're just smart. They're smart. And it's not just with the organization. Again, it's with the players. J-Dub is about winning. You know he's about winning a championship. You know that because he signed this deal now instead of waiting. So, congratulations to Jalen Williams for signing the 5-year, $287 million rookie extension. Shout out to Chet. Shout out to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And again, knock on wood, I'm not hoping for anything, but barring any injury, as if you look at the landscape of the league, there's not too many teams, either in the East or West, that roster-wise can compete with the Oklahoma City Thunder. Not saying there aren't. I mean, I like what the Houston Rockets are doing. I like what Denver's doing. Maybe Minnesota, maybe Golden State swings and gets LeBron or something. I don't know. But as currently constructed, there's not too many teams that can go toe-to-toe with the Oklahoma City Thunder, especially now that you have Shea Gilgeous, who had single-handedly one of the greatest seasons by individual player in NBA history. Chet Holmgren, who won a championship, and J-Dub, who quietly had an incredible season too, making an All-NBA team and an All-Defensive team, and won an NBA Finals. And all three of them got paid, again, $822 million for three players. Again, man, it's easy to get desensitized to stuff like this because it's like, I think they're saying that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is extremely close to making $1 million a game next year. Yeah. Shout out to them. Well deserved. And we'll see next year. We'll see how it is next year, because right now they're at the top of the mountain. And especially when you see the moves that a lot of these teams have made, there are some that, definitely will have something to say, but I don't see too many teams at this very moment. Now, I know I said the same thing about the Boston Celtics, but again, injuries play a huge part. But I don't see too many teams that are looking at the Thunder eye to eye right now. That's all I'm saying. So congrats to J-Dub. Summer League has started, and obviously the biggest name that's playing in the Summer League is the number one overall pick, Cooper Flagg. Now, I say this almost every year, but of course you get a bunch of think pieces, you get a bunch of, he's trash. Like, okay. It's crazy. Like, how do I say this? The Summer League is not real basketball. Most of these players that are playing in the Summer League will not be on an NBA, let alone G League roster. Obviously, more will make the G League roster, but a lot of these players aren't going to make a roster. So you're asking yourself, well, then, Jalen, what should we take out of the G League? I'm glad you asked. You wanna look at poise. You wanna see, okay, even though a lot of these players aren't going to be in the NBA, 9 times out of 10, the talent level that you're playing against is a step above college. And they want to see if you can handle yourself, if you can handle the speed. Obviously, the Summer League speed is much different than an actual NBA speed. But they want to make sure that you can handle the different level of speed, the different level of thinking. And when you look, and then Cooper Flagg, Cooper Flagg is one of the greatest prospects we've ever seen in the history of prospects. He's on he's on an Anthony Davis list. He's on a Zion Williamson list. There's not too many prospects coming out of college that get the same amount of look or has the same amount of praise as Cooper Flagg. So I understand that you want to see him just completely dominate. And to be honest with you, that first game he played against the Lakers in the Summer League, and he only scored 10 points. There was a lot of little gems that I saw. I was like, oh, Cooper might be tough. For instance, I was confused a little bit when I understand that Kyrie Irving is going to be out majority of the year next year, obviously recovering from an ACL tear. But I was wondering, like, I heard that they're going to try to put Cooper Flagg at point. Now, I understand that Cooper Flagg, especially when he gets the ball in fast break, he is devastating because he is huge, bro. Like, Cooper Flagg, I know he has forward next to his name, but he is essentially a guard. He is huge. But I'm like, I know you're not going to make him the primary guard, but I do want to see what he looks like as a guard. And he looked good. He looked, again, the comp, obviously we'll need to see when actual NBA players are there, and there are some. I'm not trying to disrespect the Summer League, but yeah. But Cooper Flagg looked really good. And I think that, I mean, obviously he was the number 1 overall pick, so, but don't take much from the Summer League in a sense of, if Cooper Flagg only averages 10 points in the Summer League, it doesn't mean he's going to be a bust. It doesn't mean he's trash. What do those 10 points look like? The Summer League really forces you to watch these players. I know that there's a bunch of games, there's a bunch of teams, but you're really forced to watch these players and watch their mannerisms, watch how quickly they get tired, watch how they deal. Because I know in the Summer League, I don't think that there's like a foul limit, because some niggas, they foul like crazy. It just, you have to watch these players to see how they handle themselves. And especially going up against Bronny, I think Cooper Flagg was great. Now, let me talk about Bronny for a second. Because that was the build. That was the hype up. Cooper Flagg going up against Bronny James. I've been very vocal with my critiques of Bronny James's game. I think that Bronny James has NBA qualities. I think that there are some things that he does is obviously on an NBA level. But majority of his game, I don't think is NBA worthy. You can call me a hater. I understand. Cool. But this is just my opinion. That doesn't mean that he can't grow. That doesn't mean that he can't build himself into an NBA player in my eyes. But I just don't. I don't think that a lot of the accolades that he has translates well to an NBA game. Now, what's the word? The retort to that was, Jalen, he's just a rookie. True. Very true. He's just a rookie. Give him some time. He'll be straight. Okay. Another thing that the Summer League is supposed to show you, especially when you have players returning, is those returning players, the players that were just on rosters, the players that played in the NBA, they're supposed to dominate. They're supposed to look above and beyond different than the rest. Because you've had a year of experience. You've had a year playing alongside these players. NBA players, star caliber players, some superstar. I mean, he played. Bronny James practiced with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Luka Doncic. Right? And I think the biggest critique that I have of his game, I think he's played in two, is while he's had his moments, don't get me wrong, Bronny has not been bad in the slightest. A lot of the issues that I had with Bronny a year ago is showing itself again in this year's summer league. Some of his shot selection, some of his inconsistency when it comes to shots, his inconsistency when it comes to aggression getting to the basket. I feel like a lot of that should have been ironed out his rookie year, or at least in practice, and it clear. I mean, again, it's only 2 games, so I'm not trashing him, but a lot of those issues have reared its ugly head again. At least 2 games I've seen him in the summer league. Maybe, or actually 1, because I don't think he played the first game. Oh, no, he did. Yeah, so I think this is the Lakers' 3rd summer league game, but Bronny's 2nd. Look, I think Cooper Flagg, I'm very interested to see how he integrates with AD, with Kyrie, with Klay Thompson, But I think that he, at least his first summer league, forget the 10 points, just look how different he looks compared to these players. Body-wise, again, poise. I think obviously he was the number 1 overall pick, but yeah, he's gonna be something special. So, speaking of something special, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to have a topic that's particularly not sports. It's important to know. Well, let me say this. Expectations differ from different people. Some expectations, or some people's, how do I say this? Your expectation for some people is higher and lower depending on the relationship that you have with that person, or the product that person continuously puts out. I'm going to have more expectation for a Kendrick Lamar than I would for somebody else that's maybe not as recognized as Kendrick Lamar. Doesn't mean that somebody else can't put out great work, but the expectations aren't going to be as high. Same thing with Drake. I expect my expectations for Drake would be a lot higher because of just what he's put out. I want to talk about this Clipse album. I've listened to it about 3 to 4 times. Haven't done the car test yet. That's important. But when you hear a Clipse album that hasn't come out in years, like Malice, Pusha T, while Pusha T has been rapping, Malice hasn't, he stepped away from rap, even though he has a couple features as of late. The Clipse coming back together, especially being paired with Pharrell, there are some things that you expect. You expect coke rap, you expect good rap, you expect hard-hitting bars, you expect just grimy rap. Because that is what Pusha T and Malice individually has put out, and obviously together as the Clipse they've put out. But I will say this. I think it's called Let God Sort It Out. or let God sort them out. Easily contender at this moment for album of the year for me. I was thinking about that. I was thinking about this year music in general. There's been some good projects, like The Weeknd was really good. In fact, let me let me see something. Yeah, The Weeknd was really good. Mutt the Deluxe came out, that was good. That Key Glock album, Glockavelli, I'm really enjoying that. Coco Jones, Ray Vaughn, G Herbo, greatest rapper alive. You know, there's some albums that I've liked. But in the grand scheme of things, especially when we talk about quote unquote commercial rap, or commercial music, it hasn't been a great year for that. And while it's weird to categorize the Clipse as commercial rap, this is essentially, I don't know, a bigger rap or a more anticipated rap album to have come out so far this year. Obviously, you know, people are still, and I am one of those people as well, anticipating Drake's album, Iceman. I know he dropped Sexy Song for You, but that was more of a R&B thing with Party Next Door. I know people are definitely anticipating J. Cole. So there are more anticipatory albums, but I don't think there's been one that has been as anticipated that has dropped more than the Clipse album. And boy, it was. You know, it's always interesting when I talk about Pusha T and the Clipse in general. It's like, you know exactly what you're going to get, but it sounds perfect every time. Like, there is no wiggle room in diverging from the main goal when we talk about Pusha T and the Clipse. But the fact that you're able to constantly talk about the same thing and it seems refreshing every time we hear you rap about it, man. And then Malice, man. I know that when they were at their height, there was always questions between who was better between Pusha T and Malice. Malice was a standout. And I think he was more of a standout because, again, he left rap. He left rap, found Jesus, which was I commend him for, and I don't think he cursed once on that album. Man, I kind of put, if we talk about albums this year, because I still have GNX on repeat almost daily. So I know that dropped last year. So if we're just talking about this year, right now I have 2 albums that are going neck and neck, and I know it's still late. I know it's still early, but I have 2 albums essentially going neck and neck for album of the year. That is The Weeknd and Hurry Up Tomorrow, and this Clipse album, Let God Sort 'Em Out. From the features, Tyler, the Creator, went crazy on I think it was POV, Kendrick Lamar. Oh, that's another thing. I don't know if you guys know. Actually, you may or may not. It is what it is. But I don't like spoilers. I don't like watching trailers more than once. I don't like listening to singles, or singles more than once, especially if I know that I'm going to be excited to watch it. I know that I'm eventually going to see it. For instance, a movie trailer. Fantastic Four. I know I'm going to go see Fantastic Four. I watched the first trailer. I have not watched a single clip. I have not watched a single trailer since then. Since the first trailer. Haven't watched it because I don't want to be spoiled. Superman. I'm going to go watch Superman. I watched the first trailer. I've heard people, praise it since it come out, but that whole time from the trailer to the release date, I've heard people kill it. I know I'm going to go see Superman, so I have not watched that. I say all that to say this. When that Kendrick Lamar and Clipse track, I think it's called Chains or something, when that dropped, I didn't listen to it. Chains and Whips. I did not listen to it because I knew that I am going to hear it on this album. I heard Sort 'Em Out, or yes, So Be It, even though they changed it on the album, and I heard Ace Trumpets, but outside of that, I didn't hear nothing else. And boy, am I glad I did, because as a first-time hearer of that Kendrick Lamar, I know people killed it because the whole rap beef, people are so divided when it comes to Kendrick and Drake. It's like, if you like Kendrick, you hate Drake, or if you like Drake, you hate Kendrick. It's the rap beef ain't got nothing to do with us except for entertainment. Like I still listen to both, but boy, that Chains and Whips, Kendrick Lamar verse. Look, I've only listened to it 3 times. If I'm gonna give it a album, like if I'm gonna give it a rating, I'm gonna give it a 9, maybe 9.5 out of 10. Shout out to Pharrell. I know that people were questioning, if he still has it production wise, making beats. Boy, everything I could have asked for and wanted in this album, I got, hands down. Malice rapping at a high level, Pusha T rapping at a high level, Pharrell producing incredible features. Kendrick was there, Stove God was there, Tyler. I'm forgetting some people. Nas. I'm forgetting some people. I apologize, but boy, oh my God, that open track when I think he was rapping, both of them were rapping the perspective of their parents. Which it's so great that it felt like when you look at social media, you look at Twitter and Instagram, it felt like that this was an event. Waiting for the clips. I don't listen to, obviously, if I don't watch trailers, I'm not listening to leaks. So I didn't listen to the leaks. So the first time I heard this album was 12 midnight on July 11th, and boy, bravo, Clipse, bravo, Pharrell, incredible work. Again, I'll probably give it a 9 out of 10 right now. And I haven't even done the car test yet. So, as of this point, because I'm going to honor the fact that GNX dropped in 2024. Right now, this is rap album of the year and in contention for album of the year for right now. Obviously, we'll see what happens when, the year goes. But yeah, man. We're back. Hip hop is back, man. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch of the day. For my YouTube listeners or YouTube watchers, please, please, please subscribe. I'm trying to reach as many followers, as many subscribers as I can, and I can't do it without you guys' help. If you like the content and you're not subscribed, then come on, bro. Just please subscribe. If you are subscribed and you know someone that isn't subscribed that will like the content, please, please send a share, comment. It means a lot. On my DSP listeners, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, same thing. I'm trying to grow. I'm just trying to grow the Unpopular Podcast as much as I can. And again, I can't do it without you guys. Please share, please comment, please subscribe. It means so much to me that you even are here to listen. No platform is bigger than the other, so I appreciate every single person. For my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I post pretty much daily. That's probably the quickest way to get to me. If you keep it respectful and you have an opinion about something, just leave it in the comments, and 9 times out of 10, again, if you keep it respectful, I'm probably going to respond. It just means that you are listening to me and you have an opinion. Both I care about incredibly. So yeah, don't be, leave in the comments, and I don't mind debating. Especially if you go to TikTok, you see I go back and forth a lot of times. So please follow. It means a lot. Until next time, much love.